Hello and welcome to maybe our biggest show ever. This is Weekly MTG, and this is also our first look, and your first look, at Magic the Gathering's Final Fantasy Universes Beyond set. I'm your host, Blake Rasmussen, but I'm going to mostly stay out of the way today because as excited as you might be for this set, and we know there's a ton of excitement out there, these two gentlemen to my left are probably more excited. They have been chomping at the bit to tell you about this set for so long. So we're no further ado. Let's hear from you guys.
Well, everybody, it's time. Welcome to Final Fantasy meets Magic the Gathering. This has been years and years and years in the making. I think we started working on the set in 2021, and we started talking about it even before that. We've put so much time and energy and love into this, and I cannot wait for you to see what's going on today.
Yeah, I've had the chance to work on this set for 4 years, and it's been a dream come true for myself and many other people in the building. The passion, the energy, the excitement from our game design team, our art director team, everyone that's touched the product in any way has just been an amazing journey over the last 4 years, even to the extent of like random executives chasing me down in the hallway and asking like, what does Chocobo do? Like, what are we doing? So everyone, like the passion and excitement from everyone here at Wizards has been so palpable for so long. So I'm so excited to share it with everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been a Final Fantasy player for almost my whole life. Like the first game I ever bought with some help from my parents was Final Fantasy I, right? That really got me going. And now to actually get to work on the set is incredible. And also get to work with Square Enix was unbelievable. Like, these are the people that make this game and this franchise that I love so much. And we worked hand in hand. It was really an authentic collaboration. Like, we went over there many times. We play tested with them. We showed them the cards. We saw some of the people who'd worked on the earlier games see cards that we had made. It was an incredible experience. And it's really something special. For me, it is the most special Magic set I have ever worked on, and it really means a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're quickly here just going to show a video for fans who may have missed some of the announcements from yesterday. There was an article that went live talking about the Commander decks that were released, which was very exciting, as well as the announcement of Yoshitaka Amano being involved creatively with the project, which we're very excited about.
We knew we had to do that,
yeah,
right? That was critical.
It had to be done, so.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to show you a little video here in a second. It's going to run you through a ton of cards. You see a ton of cards in a very short amount of time. But stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back and talk about all the cards. You're going to have some questions, I'm sure. Well, we have answers. So we're going to show you the video. And everybody, welcome to Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy.
Welcome to the first look at Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy. The legends from 16 games are represented in this set, which includes 4 Commander decks. Featured in the 4 decks are Terra, Herald of Hope from Final Fantasy VI, Cloud, Ex-Soldier from Final Fantasy VII, Tidus, Yuna's Guardian from Final Fantasy X, and Y'shtola, Knights Blessed from Final Fantasy XIV. Which card will command your deck? In this set, you'll find the boss monsters you love from Final Fantasy, like on this Jumbo Cactuar card, and this Sin Spira's Punishment card. And the whimsy of Final Fantasy is here too. Check out these Tonberry, Stiltskin Moogle Merchant, and Saz's Chocobo cards. Double-faced cards show character progression or different forms of the same creature. For example, Garland, Knight of Cornelia, becomes Chaos the Endless with matched increase to power and toughness. Cecil Dark Knight and Cecil Redeemed Paladin reflect Cecil's journey in Final Fantasy IV. This Emmett Selk Unsundered card becomes Hades, Sorcerer of Eld, when turned to its opposite side. With side quest Catch a Fish, you can go fishing, then turn the card over and cook the fish with Cooking Campsite to produce a food token card. New in this set are Summons, shown here on this Shiva card. Summons are saga creatures that combine features of a saga and a creature, so you can go through the steps of the saga and attack or defend at the same time. The Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus sheet features well-known art from Final Fantasy's history. Dragon at Mount Gulk features art by Yoshitaka Amano. And Yuffie Kisaragi shows art from Tetsuya Nomura. You'll find these favorites and more you love from Final Fantasy I through Final Fantasy XVI. Sephiroth Planet's Heir and Cloud Planet's Champion cards face off in ready-to-play decks from the starter kit. Check them out. All of this and more in Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy. Available June 13th. Shape your Magic story.
And welcome back. We packed a lot of hype into a really short amount of time. And so we are going to spend the rest of this show, these guys are going to be gushing for quite a bit of it, but also talking about behind the scenes, how these cards came to be, new treatments, art styles, just everything. We are going to unpack everything you just saw over the next hour. And we're going to start by first, they were so excited, they didn't even give their names when we started. So let's
Final Fantasy Day.
It's Final Fantasy Day. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
So before we dive into everything, who are you and what did you do on the set?
Hey, I'm Gavin Verhey. I was the lead set designer on Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy, which is a huge honor. Really amazing to work on it. I also want to give a huge shout out to the rest of the design team, Daniel Holt, who led the Commander decks, not on the stream today, and Yanni Skolnick, who led Vision Design. Of course, it was a huge effort across the whole company, but from the design side of things, these folks are the ones that really drove the whole thing forward and made something incredible.
Awesome. And I'm Zakeel Gordon. I was the executive producer of the set, doing everything from product design to working with all of the teams involved. Obviously, the design team, also our creative team. Shout out to Dylan Devaney, the creative lead for the set, who did an amazing job. So I've been involved with the project for 4 years now. It's wild. I can't believe it's here.
4 years are trying to
I just can't.
Right now.
I'm freaking out.
And we're both also like lifelong Final Fantasy players,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I said, Final Fantasy was the first game I ever purchased. I'm even playing a
Final
super long
Fantasy
time.
7 and 10 are not just my favorite Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy 10 may legitimately be my favorite video game. So it's so good.
All right, well, we're going to talk about all that goodness. So everything you just saw, we're going to go over it. So if you didn't quite pause the screen on what you wanted to see, we're coming back to all of it. Let's start by just talking about the set as a whole. This is a big deal. This is our first, standard Universes Beyond set. There's a lot going on here. Tell us about the set as a whole.
Yeah, so Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy is a full tentpole booster release that's legal in all formats coming out in June. The set celebrates all 16 mainline games, so if you're a fan of some of the earlier pixel era content, there's absolutely going to be stuff for you. If you're a fan of some of the more modern titles like FF16, 15, or some of the MMORPGs in 11 and 14, those are also included in the set. Many of our team members have expertise throughout the history of Final Fantasy. So there were people who were super passionate about making sure we got Final Fantasy V correct and Final Fantasy III correct and the Final Fantasy XIV experience and how that differs from some of the other titles. So we went super, super deep to make sure that we accurately represented each of the mainline games in this. And as part of that, this is one of the largest or biggest design challenges I think we've probably ever had for Magic and for Universes Beyond. So as a kind of self-imposed limitation for the set, the main set specifically is limited to all 16 mainline titles. So for example, Final Fantasy X is in the set. Final Fantasy X unfortunately did not make it. That was a
Wait, you said Final Fantasy X and then Final Fantasy X. You said
Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2.
Okay.
The sequel and spin-offs are unfortunately not in. That is just entirely due to the sheer scale of content. You really could have made multiple different sets, but in order for us to get this correct and to make sure that we really accurately represented specifically many of the earlier games and the breadth of the entire mainline series, we impose that design limitation. So that's what the shape of the content for the set will look like.
And there's no shortage of stuff to put in there. And
No,
I really
absolutely
wanna,
not.
I really want to go back and stress how important it was to get all of those mainland games represented. As a designer, I almost saw it as like I had my like roster of people, and I was like, okay, I'm making a card for Final Fantasy III. I know who the fan for Final Fantasy III is in the office. I'm gonna go talk to them and chat with them. And because a lot of people have played some Final Fantasy games, but very few people have played every single Final Fantasy game. Right. So kind of knowing who my super fans were for each game in the office was really critical. And it really made it feel like a huge office endeavor, right? We all worked together, like so many people. This wasn't just a small design team. This was so many people over the past several years contributing ideas and chipping in and play testing, like to bring this to life and bring that passion and infuse it into the set.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the product lineup, Zakeel. There we go. Tell us what we can expect here.
Yep. So once again, this is a full tentpole release, which includes an entire 300 plus card standard set. Those are available in play boosters and collector boosters, as well as our standard offering of bundle and gift bundle. And then alongside the main set, we also have a commander deck release, which has 4 commander decks themed around individual games, with the collector versions of those decks also available. For new players, we also have a starter kit that is 100% standard legal. So if you're learning to play Magic and this may be your first introduction to Magic, you can pick that up, battle your friends, and then upgrade your deck and take it to your local game store and have a good time. And then, of course, as always, we have a dedicated pre-release kit for the launch event in June.
All right. Now, let's get back to the cards.
Yeah.
All right, fine. You can
We didn't give chat enough time to properly freak out about each card before we went to the next one. So we're going to spend some time freaking out about these cards. Zakeel and Gavin have already been doing so, and they're going to continue doing so. So let's take a look at our first card and our first Chocobo.
Saz's Chocobo. They're finally here.
Yeah, it's time.
We've made a Chocobo card. So we have a quick graphic here for fans who may not be as familiar with kind of the skeleton or mechanical aspect of Magic cards. But as a quick kind of run through, at the top of every Magic card, you have the name of the card, the mana value of what it costs to cast that card, and as you go down towards the bottom of the card, your type line calling out what the creature type or card type, and then the creature type related to that, as well as the expansion symbol, which denotes rarity. Of course, rules text and flavor text, which Gavin will get into in a second. But one very special thing for this set that we've never done before is within the collector information, on the bottom left, on every single card within Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy, whether it's main set or commander decks or promo cards or whatever, there is a game identifier. And it has the specific call out of which game that card is from. This is very useful if you may only be familiar with a couple different games, and if you open up a pack of cards, you can learn and kind of really dive into the history of, oh, this character's from Final Fantasy IV, or you can see the evolution of many of the creatures of how the Chocobo design or the Chocobo model has evolved throughout history. So huge moment.
I want to make sure you say that again. So every card identifies what game it's from.
Every single card in the entire set, both main set, commander, and anything related to Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty fun story how this came about. We were in a play test, and it's people who were playing who knew some Final Fantasy, but not all of them. And they're like, well, here, who's this? What game is this from? And I was like, oh, that's from Final Fantasy VIII. And they looked at another card, and they're like, okay, well, what is this from? Well, that's from Final Fantasy III. And we were looking at that, and we're like, oh, well, what if we just actually put that? It was actually Zakeel's idea. What if we just put that on the card? And I love it. It's like you get to see the ones that you know and recognize, but also it tells you should go look a little deeper, right? You're like, oh, I want to go learn more about 8 or 3 or whatever the game might be. And I love that it draws you in a bit to the whole universe of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I did see a good question in chat on that. Do even the basic lands have that?
Correct. Every single card. Every single card.
And now if we put Saz's Chocobo back up for a second, I'll talk a bit about the card mechanics, because it's pretty exciting. So, of course, Saz's Chocobo, 1-mana Chocobo, really exciting. Little baby Chocobo, super adorable and cute. One thing I'll call out is that the Chocobos in this set have a bit of a landfall theme going on. So while this is the only Chocobo you're going to see today, you can imagine what maybe some other Chocobos might end up doing. So you'll see plenty of these birds around getting bigger as you play land. So you got to run around on your Chocobos. And yeah, this little guy hits hard, really hard, by the way.
Yeah.
So he grows up fast.
All right, let's move on to some other cute cards in the set. Tell us about Tonberry.
Yeah, so Tonberry was a design. It took us a while to get right. I talked to a lot of people about what they expected to see in the set, and of course, Chocobos and Moogles and all that kind of stuff was in there. But Tonberry came up over and over and over again. And one of the things I tried to do in the design of the set was make sure that some of the really iconic stuff showed up at lower rarities. So even if you haven't played all the Final Fantasy games, as you're opening up a booster pack, you're likely to see some things that you recognize, right? And Tonberry was pretty iconic, so I wanted to get it in at common or uncommon. And we worked on the design for a while, and if you don't know the Tonberry, it's this character that has like this knife and will kind of kill you in one hit and like slowly follows you around, but will absolutely destroy you if they hit you. And so showing up a little bit slow with that stun counter, and then once they start attacking, first strike, death touch, you are not blocking this thing, really felt thematic for a Tonberry. And a 1-mana, 2/1 creature that basically can't be blocked effectively is a solid 1-drop. So really fun little take here.
Absolutely. All right, now there are also some new creature types in the set, which we'll see on this next card. Tell us about Stiltskin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Moogle. It's a Final Fantasy set,
It's
you
a
know?
Moogle.
I think
it's a Moogle.
what's not to love. So we tried to match existing creature types where we could, but with Moogles, what is it? It's a Moogle. That's what it is. So we, added the new creature type Moogle here. Now, I'm a big lover of Final Fantasy IX. That's one of my favorite Final Fantasies. And so one of the great things about your lead designer is you get to put a little bit of a thumb on the scale to what cards show up in the set. And so, of course, every game is well represented. We have tons for everybody. But I wanted to make sure to get some of my favorite characters from Final Fantasy IX in here, and that's where Stiltskin comes from. And I love this kind of white donate effect. It's a little fresh. It's a little new. Hand them something, get a card back. Really fun in multiplayer, or I don't know, maybe in standard you hand them a demonic pact for fun. I mean, these kinds of things happen sometimes. he's very generous, little Moogle here.
Zakeel, we also see kind of our first booster fun here with those borderless woodblock cards. Tell us about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were going through development, one of the things that we worked on with Square Enix was trying to figure out what are cool, awesome collectible iterations of many of these characters. What can we really do to bring this set to life, feels authentic? And the borderless woodblock art style is one that we did in Neo Kamigawa on the basic lands that were very successful and people love them. And so we brought them here kind of as a nod to the Japanese roots of the Final Fantasy series and just a beautiful art style that we think just really elevates all of these cards.
Okay. Now, one of the bigger reactions I saw in chat is for our next card, and bigger is correct.
I believe this is the biggest number ever in the text box of a Black Border Magic card.
So as someone who, I've played Final Fantasy VII and dabbled in a couple others, but I'm not super familiar. This was the card, I was looking through the set that caught my eye. It's
So
big
awesome.
for Final Fantasy. It's huge for Magic. Tell us about this.
Well, first of all, I think one thing I'll say is, Zakeel and I, for the past several years, every time there's like a new Reddit thread or a new, tweet on some social media about talking about what they expect to see in the set, we're always like, ooh, what do we get? What do we get? What do we get? And the Cactuar that gets plus 9999 has been, or plus 99, depending on which version they're talking about, has always been a thing people have suggested.
Yeah.
And so every time Zakeel and I are like, we got him. We got him on this one. And this card's been there since almost the very beginning. It's perfect. So a Cactuar, deals a ton of extra damage. There's 10,000 needles is the ability of the Jumbo Cactuar here. This one gets plus 9999 in the game. And it's such a perfect creative fit. And yeah, it is ridiculous. It will kill you in one hit. It does have player death touch. Yes, you can fling this at people. Yes, you can give it haste and go bananas. But I love that it really captures the game mechanic of Final Fantasy in a really straightforward way that you see it and you're like, I get it. I understand. And one of the fun things for me and others on the design team about working with a game to make a Magic set out of is there's already a lot of fun game mechanics we can just translate into Magic. And this is one to me of like, yeah, what does it do? It deals 10,000 damage. Well,
there you go.
I guess here we go. That's what the card's going to do here, Yeah. So this
card just makes me so happy.
Oh, it's so good.
That's all I want to add.
And
so good.
Yeah, it costs 7 mana, but you will kill people with this, right? Like in our commander play testing, you would like give this haste the turn it comes down.
Yep.
Lightning Greaves, a great friend of Jumbo Cactuar. You can of course fling it at people. You got to get it to attack, but you can make that happen, right? No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think one of my favorite things about this card is obviously there are tons and tons of Final Fantasy fans out there, but also you can just look at that card and get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10,000 needles. Yep. Okay. It's got 10,000 needles. Got it.
Yes, and of course, we do bring back ability words here. You saw that there. There's a number of ability words throughout the set to convey a bit of extra flavor.
Right.
Or, excuse me, flavor words is what they're called. Flavor words to convey a bit of extra flavor. Because there's so many cool moves in Final Fantasy, we wanted to make sure that those were written out somewhere because characters have awesome abilities they use. So let's actually put those on the cards.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we've got something a bit more serious. Let's take a look at Sin Spira's Punishment.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is the big bad from Final Fantasy X, depending on how you want to frame it, I suppose. But we want to make sure that all your favorite heroes and villains, the big ones from all the main games, are represented here, and Sin is, of course, no exception. Now, I'm not going to spoil the story of Final Fantasy X in case you're not familiar, but making a bunch of copies of things is certainly pretty resonant for what Sin is doing here. And I got to say, man, that borderless woodblock version is awesome. It's just gorgeous. They knocked it out of the park on these.
Absolutely.
This is a really fun, different take on kind of a Sultai graveyard commander. You want to fill your graveyard with lands, so you can bring a ton of them back. It's definitely a haymaker for 7 mana on that enters or attacks trigger.
Yeah, now, Zakeel, we're going to keep gushing over the art as we go through this, but can you talk a little bit about the approach overall to the art styles and what you wanted to invoke?
Yeah, so much of the booster fun in the set is heavily influenced by various different Japanese art styles. So it's kind of a top-down take on a lot of iconic characters and monsters, creatures that we know people will love, and done in obviously a different way from Magic House style. So of course you see the main set version of the ship going into or battling Sin with the city on top, but seeing the perspective of Sin kind of flying through the sky in this woodblock is absolutely amazing. So.
Yeah, and how closely did, obviously we have our stable of artists, Square has theirs. How closely did we work with Square Enix on all of the art and the artists?
Yeah, so every single piece of art was reviewed by Square Enix. We worked very collaboratively throughout all of development, talking about this is how we want to represent each game, this is the character list that we want to hit on, and we would go back and forth. It was super collaborative of, this is a character that we want to put at a high rarity that we think will be special, and we may send them maybe a list of 2 or 3, and they'll say these 2 are ones that we encourage you to do because of this reason, or we have a really awesome story and maybe you can tie this into design, or maybe this specific character is very important to our brand, so we'd like you to do it this way or not. So many of the artists that have worked on Final Fantasy throughout their brand history were many of the people who were actually reviewing the artwork. And as we announced, again, Yoshitaka Amano and perhaps maybe a few other artists were also involved in the creative creation of art pieces for the set. So.
It was so cool to work with Square Enix once again, right? They're the people that helped bring this franchise to life and are still working on it now. And a lot of those folks are still there. Like when we went over to Japan to play with them, we got to meet people who worked on some of my favorite games from when I was a kid. You know, it's so special. And of course, they've got some huge Magic fans there too, which is part of how we got to bring this to life.
Yeah, the producer on Square side, the producer on Square side, Soichi Ichikawa, is a lifelong Magic fan, and there's like just a very special moment when we're talking to them about creating something. We finally, build this file. We fly over for this play test. We're very excited, but of course you're a little nervous of just like, we put so much work into this. What do you think? And they were just beaming as Magic fans and as Final Fantasy fans, just really happy with the quality of the designs and the quality of the set. So it is unlike anything I've had the chance to do. It's so awesome.
I remember we have a weekly call with them every week for years where we chat with these folks. And I remember my first time I was on the call, the guy's like, hey, I played in 4 pre-releases last weekend. And I'm like, oh, okay, you mean business. Like you are really a Magic fan. All right, awesome. Let's talk, and they saw all the cards, they get feedback on some of the designs. It was really amazing, really amazing.
All right, let's get back to talking about the cards. In the video, we revealed 4 double-face cards. So let's take a look at those, and we'll start with Garland, and talk about, tell us about how we landed on having double-face cards in the set and what function they serve.
Yeah, so when I think about Final Fantasy, one of the things that really pioneered in games is kind of the idea of this isn't even my final form, right? Someone who evolves or changed, and the heroes and villains both together go through lots of evolution. And we thought, what better way to represent that than double-faced cards? You know, like that literally lets you show the evolution of these characters. And Garland, from the very first Final Fantasy game, you see him very early on in the game, you fight him, it's the first boss battle you have in the game, and then he comes back at the end as Chaos. I guess, spoilers for Final Fantasy 1. But that's exactly what happens here, right? He's a nice little creature that comes down early, he goes away, and then later on he comes back as Chaos. So you'll see these at all throughout the set in all kinds of ways, showing off, like I said, heroes and villains, and a couple other things I'll get to in a second. But heroes and villains are kind of the big tentpole for us here.
And then we see that extended art, of course. Extended art is a staple of ours in collector boosters.
But I'll call out, you do say that uncommon here, right? So
Yeah.
you gave it to the legends in the set, which is pretty cool. So if there's an uncommon legend that you're excited about, you can get that in extended art.
Very cool. Yeah, that is, I don't know that we've ever done that before.
I don't believe we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just let the legends of Final Fantasy shine a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool idea.
Every character is someone's favorite character, and we took that very serious throughout development, just of making sure that if you're a super fan of FF1, there's an awesome, cool card that you can collect and build a deck around.
Totally, like when reading all these threads, like you get all the characters you would expect every time. There's always like these notes about like, what about this character, this side character, this side character, and really, you're absolutely right. Every character is someone's favorite character, so let's make them awesome if we're gonna be in the set.
Yeah, at least a few people in chat were pretty stoked to just shout chaos.
You can do that too.
All right, let's see our next double-faced card, Cecil.
Yeah, speaking of heroes and villains, Cecil is a character that I was asked for very, very early on when we announced the set. People have wanted this. Many people have guessed double-faced Cecil, which is perfect for their character's story. And we wanted to give them a really banging card. So yeah, a 1-mana 2/3. Well, I don't see those stats every day. That eventually then transforms into a 4/4 lifelinker is quite the deal. My idea for this, I was actually inspired by like Death's Shadow decks, which try and deal damage to themselves really quickly. So you can kind of bring your life total down fast and then flip it in an aggressive deck, or there's all kinds of fun ways you can do this. Wait to play it till later if you want to. But it's a really cool way of showing off Cecil's story, and a card from Final Fantasy IV, which is a favorite among many longtime Final Fantasy players.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to Dylan on our creative team, who he was my Final Fantasy IV expert. I mean, I played it a long time ago, but he like loves Final Fantasy IV. So this was the card I was like, we have to get this one right. And I'd constantly go to Dylan and be like, how about this? How about this? How about this? And eventually we got here. And it's such a perfect mirroring, such a great mirroring, and a pretty sweet card too.
Yeah. All right, and then now the extended we've seen, the Borderless character card, Zakeel, this is the first we're seeing them.
Yeah, so as I previously mentioned, much of the overall collectible strategy and collectible kind of booster fund design in the set is heavily inspired by Japanese culture. You saw the kind of traditional woodblock inspired Japanese artwork on cards like Sin and Stiltskin. Here is more of an anime style artwork done on Cecil with the game title in Roman numerals behind the character. So
That's something that, when we showed it quickly earlier, it's easy to miss, but I think that is a really cool feature on this.
Yep. So just another very just awesome, beautiful art style, as well as the extended art here, so you can kind of pick which one you want if you're a super fan of Final Fantasy IV.
I love that it really makes those characters stand out. And one thing I especially love about those early games is, look, I love a lot of early Final Fantasy games. One was one of the first games I ever purchased, like I said. But it is pixels at the end of the day, and you don't get the characters in as high resolution as you would here. So Magic lets you bring all this to life in this artwork, which is cool. This is a collection of all the games with our incredible artist pool drawing these characters and illustrating them and bringing them to life in ways you've never seen before. And so, like, yeah, I played Final Fantasy IV, but Cecil didn't look this awesome. Like, this is so cool to see right here, So I love, especially with the earlier games, bringing that to life. And Final Fantasy IV with Cecil is a very popular character, so it's cool to do that there.
All right, you've mentioned villains a few times. Let's take a look at our next double-faced card.
Oh, yeah.
Quite the story here with this double-faced card.
Yeah, Emmett Selk. I mean, this is, we showed this art previously, and people flipped out about it. Emmett Selk is a super favorite character for Final Fantasy XIV, And Cameron Williams on my set design team, I talked about how I have a person for every game. Cameron Williams is a huge Final Fantasy XIV fan.
Yeah.
So much so that the only time I ever see him take vacation is when like the new Final Fantasy XIV raid drops, right? He'll like go and be like, sorry, I couldn't come to the meetings. I gotta go play Final Fantasy XIV. He's super into it, and he is amazing at his job.
He did so much for the set. He did such an incredible job.
Incredible job. And when it came to 14, he was always my expert, and we had to get Emmett right, absolutely. And so we made a card, right? This is a pretty awesome card. This is a looter, okay, it's pretty solid, that turns into Yawgmoth's Will on the backside. Permanent Yawgmoth's Will. I'll tell you, if you transform this, you are not going to lose. It's very hard to lose when you transform this. And as it turns out, getting 14 cards in your graveyard, not that hard when you have a lot of self-mill stuff going on.
That's a pretty specific number on getting cards in your graveyard. Was that a tweak from design? Like, where did that come from?
Well, you know, one thing in Final Fantasy XIV is they do a lot of calling out numbers of things that reference them. Final Fantasy has this across the board, and in 14 there's a lot of 14s. So, you know, we put 14 on the card, and I told casual play design, if we gotta change the 14, I'll understand. But if you suggest 13 or 15, you better have a really good reason for changing away from 14, right? And eventually it just stuck the whole way through as 14. We play tested it, and actually the feedback I got was weirdly, it was about right. I guess it was right the whole time. So excited for you to play this card because it is, yeah, I mean, a bit of card selection, really strong, but also just slamming this late, flipping it on your upkeep and turning it into Eternal Yawgmoth's Will is quite the magic card. So yeah, Emmett is powerful, and I love, if you go to the next slide here, I love the Borderles character version here. You're just so sassy. You get kind of the other side of Emmett Selk here.
Yes, absolutely. As well as that extended art, I love. Part of it is you have the character focused shot on one side, and then more of the kind of environment and general storytelling of what exists within the main set artwork. So. Just absolutely incredible.
One thing that's really cool about having multiple treatments for a lot of these cards is that there are so many stories that a character will tell, and Emmett shows up, of course, in 14 again and again and again. So seeing him in a couple different moments, a couple different places is really cool, and something that I'm stoked we got to do here with these extra treatments.
Now, one thing we haven't spent much time on is the flavor text, but I've seen some people in chat call out the flavor text in really good ways. So, you know, someone remarked here, oh my God, the lore text is the same thing he said when you defeat it. So how much attention did the team pay to that sort of moment in the game to pull flavor text?
All of the attention.
Yeah, truly. The spreadsheets.
This is 100% Dylan Devaney, the creative lead for the set, spent many long hours replaying games, watching playthroughs of games, looking through the dialogue boxes and everything to really pull from, to make the set feel authentic, and to really just deliver those fan favorite moments. Yeah. So like, again, it was very important for us to get it right. It was very important for Square Enix to get it right. And our team just went all the way.
And once again, everything was reviewed by Square and seen by Square, right? So sometimes they would have a suggestion back to us of, oh, try this thing out. So yeah, and then in terms of some of the Final Fantasy XIV stuff, I know there's all kinds of famous quotes, and we wanted to make sure to get those on a bunch of cards. So of course, I can't tell you what they are yet.
Just trust us.
But there are some other really iconic ones in there. So you can take some guesses of what those might be. But yeah, we got some good ones for you.
All right, so the DFCs we've talked about so far have all been characters who transform, but there's another type of DFC.
Yeah, so when I was making the set, we did a lot of play tests, people were having fun with it, you get all the heroes, all the villains, you get these epic battles, which is a huge part of Final Fantasy, but also is not the only part of Final Fantasy. Feedback I kept getting was, okay, I mean, I love this, but in Final Fantasy, it's not just about battling, there's side quests you go on and little mini games, and we get that in the set somehow. And we had these double-faced cards already. So I was like, what if we turn some of these mini games into double-faced cards where you get the reward at the end? And I love the idea, and it just stuck. It took a lot of work on iterating on them, but they turned out pretty cool. So let's pull it up on the screen here. Fishing side quest. Of course, there's a fishing mini game. Even in Magic the Gathering now, we got a fishing mini game. It's actually a good year for fishing mini games between this and I guess fishing rod in the fishing pole foundations. Yeah. But there's 5 uncommon mini games. They're all from different games, so I'll let you guess what they might be. Put a bit of speculation out there for you. But they all have the side quests on the front side, and then on the back side, when you complete their quest, you get the reward from it. So here, you got to go fishing, and when you catch that fish, you eventually get to build your cooking campsite and cook that fish up, which is a lot of fun. And this references, of course, Final Fantasy 15, and I love that food token too. 15 has a very different kind of aesthetic than a lot of their Final Fantasies, and it really shows like, hey, this is a bit of a different game than the other ones, you know? And there's a delicious meal your fish have a lunch you right there. So yeah, this is a very cool little thing, and I look forward to seeing what your guesses for the 4 other uncommon side quests are.
Yeah. Now, the next card we're going to talk about, I think, is one of the coolest mechanical innovations
Yes.
to show off a part of Final Fantasy. So let's talk a bit about summons.
Yeah, so this is something that Yanni and his team, the Division design team, came up with early, and I thought was absolutely brilliant, and a huge new tentpole direction to take this kind of set in. So summons, if you're not familiar with Final Fantasy, are these characters that you summon to the fight. They are really powerful, they do some cool stuff, and then they kind of make a big move and go away. That's kind of their thing. Now, depending on the game, exactly how that would work might differ a little bit, but that's kind of the gist of summons. And how could we capture that on a Magic card, right? And we tried a lot of things. I know they tried out mechanics like fading or vanishing, but that didn't quite feel right. And so they finally hit on something that was a perfect fit. So let's bring up Shiva here. So these are something we've never seen in Magic before, but are yet a perfect blending, and that is enchantment creature sagas. So what they are is they work exactly like how you would imagine a fusion of the two work. You play it, you do the first chapter right away, they can attack and block as normal, and then each turn you go to the next chapter, and after the third chapter, they go away. So you play Shiva here, you tap one of their creatures, the next turn you'll tap another one of their creatures, and then on the third turn, you will get to activate the ultimate ability here, you Diamond Dust, you draw a card for all your opponent's tapped creatures, and the saga goes away. And there's a lot of pretty fun gameplay intention here of like, okay, do I want to attack? Do I want to block? If I'm the opponent, do I want to spend a removal spell on this? Because it's going to go away in 2 turns anyway. Do I want them to get their effects? So there's a lot of fun interplay. And I also love a couple cool things here. This is the first time you've seen flavor text on sagas. There's this text box here at the bottom. We got flavor text there. Of course, this is the only one you're seeing today, but that might not be the only text that goes in that little space. And then also, first time we're doing, I think, borderless sagas. Isn't that right, Zakeel?
Absolutely. So this is the first time we've ever done borderless sagas. Of course, that woodblock art style is coming back. One other thing I'll mention is that of all of the summons in the set, they do appear at all rarities. So summons are such a significant portion, or play such a significant role in the DNA of Final Fantasy, you will encounter summons from common to mythic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked earlier about how we wanted to make sure that at lower rarities you saw things that you really recognized. Well, these are things that are pretty common throughout most Final Fantasy games. So this one, even though it's from Final Fantasy X, you could have seen a version of it in so many different games that it's really cool that you get to see this and you might recognize it from whatever game you happen to know Shiva from.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really incredible new mechanic. I cannot wait for you to play with it. It is so much fun to get to play with this new twist on things. And it's funny. We saw someone guess this last week actually on social media, which was crazy. We've been looking at all the threads for ages. No one's ever come close on Saga creatures, and last week someone got it. So if you're that person, hats off to you. Well done.
All right, so Zakeel, I want to give you a moment to kind of build up this next part, because Through the Ages is an aspect of the set that I think is really special.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we were going through development of this set, so much of the creative concepting came from original source material artwork, right? If you're trying to bring Final Fantasy I, 2, really all the way up to really the modern games from 1 to 10, you're looking at a lot of artwork, a lot of very prolific illustrations that have existed for 30 plus years. And of course, that artwork is very recognizable to the Final Fantasy artwork. It's also just amazing, beautiful fantasy illustrations. And about halfway through development, as we're kind of riffing off of, okay, this is the original image and this is what it'll look like in the Magic house art style, I look at Gavin, I look at Dylan Devaney and Daniel Holt, and we're just like, we should just put these on cards. Like, people would just love these. So the Final Fantasy Through the Ages bonus sheet is a unique program launching with Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy that takes source material artwork from the original Final Fantasy games of the past 35 plus years and places them on reprints within the Magic universe. So here are 2 cards. The first one from Final Fantasy I. This is artwork done by Yoshitaka Amano as the Dragon of Mount Gulg, as a reprint of Ancient Copper Dragon, as well as Yuffie Kisarage as Yuriko the Tiger's Shadow from Final Fantasy VII with artwork done by Tetsuya Nomura. You can expect concept art and you can expect the Final Fantasy Through the Ages concept artwork to appear for each individual game from 1 to 16. And of course, anytime we get to work again with Yoshitaka Amano or Tetsuya Nomura, it's absolutely amazing. I will say that this is kind of Amano may be associated with the set in multiple different ways, but it was nice to be able to pick up some of the original concept art and really bring it to life within Magic, and perhaps there's a couple more surprises along the way.
Yeah, and getting to play with these cards is so fun too, because while they are not standard legal, this is a bonus sheet, so they're kind of outside of there. You can draft these unlimited, and it's pretty fun to get to throw a haymaker from the top rope down and be like, wow, didn't expect to see this here, okay, or I didn't expect to get a ninjutsu or whatever, it's pretty cool. So there's a lot of fun to be had with these cards, and they're just gorgeous. Like, we actually got the first ever packs in a couple of weeks ago, and just to look through them, which was an amazing day for us. But we got to open some of these up and see what they look like, and they are incredible. And bringing that concept art that is so beloved and the images that are so beloved from those games to life on a Magic card, it's just amazing. It is really amazing.
Yep. Yeah, and so just to make sure, I'm seeing some questions in chat, just to make sure we clarify, the bonus sheet is not legal in standard, but will be in play boosters, and you can draft it.
Correct. They are in play and collector boosters, legal and limited, not legal and standard.
Right, they don't change format legality, but they are awesome.
Yes.
And there's some weird sideways decks you can definitely draft with them. So I'll tell you a story after the sets come out about it, one of the weirdest decks I ever saw drafted.
All right, now let's move into talking about Commander, the Commander design. So there are four Commander decks. You may have seen the article on IGN yesterday. I know a ton of people checked that out and looked at the 4 face cards. We're going to talk a little bit more about those. So let's go deck by deck and talk about each of the decks. So here is Revival Trance. Tell us what we're doing here.
Yeah, so first of all, what I'll kind of kick off with is we're trying to figure out what we wanted to do for the 4 decks for Final Fantasy. And we talked about a lot of different things, but the thing that really struck us was let's do them based around different games. Like, let's pick a game and make a deck a pretty bespoke thing around that game. And so we picked 4 games that we knew were beloved. Of course, every game is represented in the main set. All the mainline games are. But Commander actually picked 4 games to kind of focus on. And one of my favorites, and a great one from the Pixel era, is Final Fantasy VI. And, of course, Terra heading that deck up. Now, this is a black, white, red kind of graveyardy deck. And specifically, I thought a cool thing Daniel did was this focuses on kind of the second part of the game, when you're bringing back your whole party, which really makes sense for the kind of graveyardy theme. And that's what Terra's doing here, right? She's trying to recruit your own whole party. Now, if this is not the Terra you want to play with, don't worry. For these many of these characters, we have other versions in the main set for you. So there's lots of options, but this is the one on the face of the Commander deck. And a pretty cool take on this character, and a really unique way of kind of making the bring back to graveyard meld well with the story of Final Fantasy of you're getting stuff back from the yard. And they also get these Borderles character treatments, right, Zakeel?
Yep. So each of the face commanders gets Borderles character card treatments that are available in Collector Booster, as well as the extended art treatment as well. So very, very cool.
Now, I want to linger on something here because I think it's one of the coolest features of these Commander decks is, the main set has, all 16 mainline games, but each Commander deck draws from one game, and it's like you're playing just that one game, right?
Yeah, above the land row, right? So the lands we kind of grabbed a mix of, from different games, so some of them repeat across the deck and so on. But if it's a spell, it is themed to that game, which is really cool, right? We got all new artwork for these that all are set in the universe of that game. There's a ton of cool new cards and some new great reprints that have been refaced. So lots of fun was had there. And it really, like, when you look at these things, there's like bespoke representation of the game, right? You look at it and it feels like you were holding a bit of Final Fantasy VI's story in your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not to get too romantic. It is very emotional to see many of these decks, specifically the Final Fantasy X one for me, just to relive. The team did such an amazing job just telling the story and reliving just amazing moments from that game.
And once again, like
from all the games,
we all worked really closely together on this. Right? We're always talking about what we wanted to do and what games we wanted to represent. And in the case of design, like Daniel Holt led the Commander decks, I led the main set, and we worked really closely to make sure that these characters are very popular. I'll make 4 main set versions of them that are going to be great for the main set. You'll make 4 Commander versions of them that are going to be great for Commander. So it was really great collaboration between the two of us, and I'm really happy with what he came up with.
Now, when these were revealed yesterday, we did get a lot of questions about MTG Arena. Now, typically, Commander cards don't come to Arena, but Final Fantasy is a really special set. People are super stoked that it's going to be on Arena. Zakeel, I understand we did something a little different for Commander and Arena this time.
Yep, so all 4 face commanders and the 4 backup commanders for each of the commander decks, so a total of 8 cards, will be available on Arena.
Okay.
So be able to play those online and have a great time.
Great. You got to get people's favorite characters on there. Yeah.
Of course, in addition to the whole main set, of course, will be in Arena as well.
Yep.
So you can go ahead and draft your heart's content, which I know I'm excited to do. So.
All right, let's move on to the next deck, surely to be a favorite. Limit Break, featuring Cloud.
Yeah, this is a red, green, white deck full of equipment and trying to get your power up to 7. It's got Cloud on the front. You know him. You love him. It's Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. He's got a huge sword. There are also, as you might imagine, huge swords in the deck to put on your creatures and try and get their powers all the way up to 7 so you can hit kind of that threshold bonus. So another instance of the number 7, game number mattering here. So there's a bit of that going throughout the set. Kind of my line in both Commander and main set was, let's not do that if it's the wrong design, but if it's the right design, let's do it where we can, right? So there's a bit of that going on, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, it's the Final Fantasy VII Commander deck. It's cool. It's amazing. It's the bespoke experience you get to hold in your hand for Final Fantasy VII Magic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more I can say other than it's sick, and that Borderles character card is a pretty cool version of Cloud too.
Yeah, absolutely. We previously said this, but as a reminder, each of the deck does come in 2 versions. The regular Commander deck, which has 2 foil face cards, as well as the total 100-card deck, and then the Collector Commander, which is entirely in a cool collectible Surge foil treatment for people who like shiny foil cards.
Wow, who might those be? I can't think of anybody.
Now, my next question from chat goes for any of these Commander decks, but obviously it came up here with Cloud. Are we going to see main set versions of these characters as well?
Yeah, I'll say that all 4 of the face commanders for the Commander decks have main set versions.
Okay.
One of the cool things about that we did with the Commander decks is we were able to, because they're entirely bespoke representations of their decks, and the main set only has so many card slots, is we were able to fill some of the other characters that didn't have room in the main set in these Commander decks.
Yeah.
But the face characters, absolutely. All the face characters you'll find the versions of in the main set. So if you want another version of Cloud to play around with, don't worry, I got one for you. And it's sick. Let me tell you right now, it's sick.
All right, let's hear about our next deck, Counter Blitz.
Yeah, this is the Final Fantasy X Commander deck, green, white, and blue, featuring Tidus as the commander there. And the thing I really love here is in Final Fantasy X, you have the sphere grid. If you've ever played that game, I know you might have spent many hours, I know I did, on the screen trying to make sure you can min-max all your abilities and how they work out. And it really kind of feels like you're moving counters around, and it's a very fun thing where we figured out that counters and sphere grid kind of have a really nice mashup there. And so as you're kind of like figuring out how to spec your abilities properly, you get to enhance your characters the way you want to. So it's not only like a great flavor fit and really feels like Final Fantasy X, but you will spend a turn there trying to min-max all your counters, just like I was on the sphere grid screen in Final Fantasy X. So it's a very, very cool take on it, and that was a smart thing Daniel came up with.
I do have to ask, because chat is all over this, and we've seen a lot of comments on social media. Blitzball, is it represented in the deck?
I will tell you that we know about Blitzball. We love Blitzball. There might be places where Blitzball appears. That is a side quest that was very popular. I mentioned those 5 side quests earlier. Well, who knows? Maybe Blitzball is one of them. Maybe there's multiple Blitzball cards. I'm not going to tell you right now, but yeah, we know some of you just want to go play Blitzball all day, so we wanted to make sure that you would be able to represent that here. I know I spent way too long trying to win the Blitzball championship. Beating Sin, who cares? I got to win the league. So yeah, I feel that. I feel that, chat.
Zakeel, anything to add about this deck, or Titus, or Blitzball if you want?
Yeah, Final Fantasy X is my favorite deck. There's a lot of nothing to add right now. I think as we get a little bit closer to debut, this is mechanically this deck it plays so well. The team did such a great job, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
we'll for another.
Like, you have to understand, chat. Me and Zakeel could literally sit in a room and talk about these cards for like half a day, and I'm not exaggerating. Like, we have stories for every single card. We are a tight knit crew that's worked on the design of these, so it has been pretty amazing.
And you'll probably do that once everything's out.
Yes, sure, almost certainly.
Publish the 12-hour podcast.
Yeah, the extended cut.
All right, we've got one more deck to talk about. Let's take a look at Scions and Spellcraft.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy XIV, of course, bringing that to life here in this deck. And this is something we haven't really seen before, which is an Esper Spellslinger deck, wanting you to cast big spells to try and drain your opponent, or at least a little bigger than just a bunch of cantrips. And just a great fit for the character once again, right? You get to drain them for a little bit, and then once you cast spells, so fits Y'shtola really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'll just say about Final Fantasy XIV, we were very cautious or very conscientious of making sure that the gameplay experience and kind of identity of Final Fantasy XIV specifically really shine through in this collaboration. A lot of our team members, again, you had mentioned Cameron earlier, we have like an employee internal Discord of just FF14 players. Like the FF14 audience here at Wizards really loves FF14 and put a lot of intentionality in these designs. So if you're a fan of that, if you're a massive fan of FF14, just trust us. We got some stuff cooking.
Yeah, and I think especially what's interesting because it's such a massive game, and there isn't like necessarily one main hero, right? Because you are the hero. That it was a really fun design exercise to figure out where we wanted to pull everything from. And yeah, I can't wait to show you how we represented it all. But this deck is full of ways to show it off, so you'll get to see it all when the deck comes out.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. We've got one more thing to show. I was debating whether we'd do a Q&A because they have to be very tight-lipped right now. There's so much they want to say and so much they can't, and I'm afraid of opening that floodgate. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna give about maybe 5 minutes for a Q&A, which we'll do after we show this next thing. If you have a question, it helps me find it if you tag @Magic first. I will ask the question. There is no guarantee we'll be able to answer it. Maybe they'll give wink, wink, nod, nod hints. I don't know. We'll find out. But we'll do a little Q&A, just a touch of Q&A. Before we do that, we had mentioned the starter kit earlier. Let's take a closer look at the starter kit.
So yeah, this is the starter kit for Magic Final Fantasy. Very obviously, if you're going to pick two characters from the franchise, right here.
Right. Come on and learn how to play Magic. Here's Sephiroth and Cloud. Battle. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect.
One quick note before we get into the designs. The entire starter kit, again, is standard legal. So if you're a new player coming into Magic, you can purchase this, battle your friends, open up some packs, upgrade your deck, and go to your local game store and start to learn competitive play.
Yeah, and I'll say that this Sephiroth and Cloud are the ones in the starter kit. There are, once again, versions of both these characters in the main set as well, so there are other versions. These are standard legal, but there are other ones in the main set for you to go play. With that said, this Sephiroth is not messing around especially. Like, it comes in, -2/-2s all your opponent's creatures, and then it gets big. It's like a mini Massacre Worm, so for starter deck face cards, like I said, these are not messing around, but there are other versions of Cloud and Sephiroth in the main set, so stay tuned, I guess is what I'll say. Stay tuned.
All right. Let's see what questions we can dodge. All right. Let's start here. Do the Borderless cards come in non-foil?
Yes.
Great.
Boom, one question.
One question, and we answered it. You kind of talked about this earlier, but how long did this set take to develop, start to finish?
Well,
4 years, I think, in total.
Yeah.
In terms of the entire collaboration is closer to 5. The development is just about 4.
A long time.
Long time. I mean, yeah, you had to stop and play the games and then play them again. You might as well have, yeah.
One of the things that we had mentioned earlier, so this was the first collaboration set that we've ever made that was simultaneously built in English and in Japanese. So as we're going through development, as we were developing our creative text and really identifying things, all of our working development files we would create in English and then be translated into Japanese and shared with Square Enix. And we traveled to Tokyo. I think the team went, 4 different times for play testing, all kinds of different, workshops, world building stuff. So it's been quite the 4-year experience.
Also, one thing that was pretty cool is, I'll tell you, a lot has happened in the past 4 years, but one thing that definitely happened is a new Final Fantasy game came out.
Right.
And so it was fun to get to work with Square to incorporate that game into the set as well. So you didn't see anything from 16 today, but 16 is in there, and that was a fun little collaborative exercise too.
All right, you mentioned the pixel era a few times, Gavin. Will there be pixel art on cards?
Stay tuned.
Okay. Some of the answers may be like that. That's okay. All right. There's okay. Actually, let's go here. Any content from the remake trilogy?
It's a great question. So for Final Fantasy VII, the main narrative story that we are telling is focused on the original game. There are some nods to remake and rebirth in things like costuming or kind of scene landscape updates. But canonically, we are not telling the story of remake or rebirth in this product, as well as you will not see things like Crisis Core, Advent Children. The main focus is on the original games with a couple nods to costuming, which just helps in terms of as you're trying to adapt pixel and kind of low count polygon designs into high fantasy illustrations.
Okay. There are a ton of questions. Please tell me this is in the set. My favorite is blink aggressively if there's a Buster Sword. Thanks, Gavin.
I didn't say anything, Blake. I didn't say anything. I'll say this to answer a lot of your questions.
Yes.
If it is super obvious, it is probably in the set. There's a good chance. If it is your favorite hero, your favorite villain from one of the main 16 games, your favorite item, there's a very, very, very good chance it is in the set.
Yeah, I would say, just as a reminder, everyone who worked on the set is a lifelong fan of Final Fantasy, so we were very, very intentional about making sure that many of the characters from throughout the entire series are represented. So.
Yeah, so I mean, is it possible? Maybe there's one or two that are left on the sidelines, maybe, but like, all the main characters should be there. We actually had a little grid of like all the main heroes and villains to look at, and plenty of side characters too. And with the commander decks, like I said, you get to blow out those side characters even more, right? It's like, okay, we didn't have room for this person in the main set, but because Final Fantasy VII is huge, we get to put this character in the commander deck. So tons and tons of room for stuff.
All right. Can you share the sort of ratio of new cards to reprints in the commander decks?
Not today.
Okay. I'm glad Zakeel answered before me. I was just going to tell you.
Let's see. What can we answer? Here's an interesting development question, Gavin. We could probably spend a long time on this, but so Standard has changed a lot over the last 4 years. How difficult was it to keep this set in line with Standard over that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, this set went through all of our normal Standard playtesting rigor. We had our whole play design team play it. We balanced it with Standard in mind. We put a lot of energy and work into making sure it would be great in Standard and all other formats too, right? This is legal everywhere, so there's shots for a lot of different places that show up in this set. And then Limited, we also drafted it a ton. It's a really fun Limited experience in my opinion. Obviously, I am incredibly biased, so take that as you will. But I can't wait. I know when it comes out on Arena, I'm gonna just be jamming draft after draft after draft. So I cannot wait for you to all be able to check it out that way. But yeah, we put all of our normal energy and intention. It wasn't like we took any shortcuts. Like we put all of the energy we wanted to into this to make sure it would be the best set possible.
All right, we are just about out of time. We'll go with one last question. Will there be any secret layers?
I can confirm there will be.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
There we go.
Are there any other little projects hiding around the corner people might be surprised about?
I don't know.
Okay, well, fair enough.
It's a secret.
That's all we're going to say.
All right, we are just about out of time. Thank you for tuning in to this first look at Final Fantasy. We are obviously going to be chomping at the bit to come back and share more. We're going to tie Zakeel down and keep him from making public appearances until the time is right.
Can't catch me!
That time is going to be June 13th. So the global release for Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy is June 13th. The debut will obviously be before that. We will share more information on when you can learn more about the Final Fantasy set as we get a little bit closer, so stay tuned for more information. Now, as many people in chat pointed out, there are pre-orders for this available now, today, this morning. And so we can throw the product shots back up there. There's not going to be a show next week or the week after for Weekly MTG because we are going to be traveling to MagicCon Chicago this weekend. We'll have the preview panel on Friday. Lots of new information there. Nothing on Final Fantasy. This is Final Fantasy is here today. This is what we shared. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in a couple weeks.